ready to introduce an esteemed panel, CEO perspective of the business case for financial inclusion. They are Daryl Carter, CEO of Havana Corporation, D. Brian Jordan, CEO of First Horizon, John Bartling, CEO of Invitation Homes, and our moderator, currently Trilliant Risk Advisors, former Congressman, Mayor of Dallas. I didn't know that about him, and we sat next to each other at lunch last year, and CEO of the Financial Services Roundtable, Mr. Steve Bartling.
We are delighted to be here. We get to be the CEO panel. I want to tell you, these are CEOs of stature. That's why we've invited them. Each of these gentlemen that Regina introduced, and I'll tell you about it, they are amazing people with stature, with vision, and with a passion for financial inclusion and a commitment to Operation Hope. So first of all, I'll just start by thanking you for your commitment to all things in terms of financial inclusion. I do want to say just quickly that it's been my honor and my privilege to be a part of Operation Hope for, John, I think something over 10 years now. It's been frankly one of the greatest honors of my life to help to do my small part to help build Operation Hope to the success that it is today. As John says, the largest conference in the world globally on the issues of financial inclusion and eradicating poverty. So these three CEOs, and I'm going to start. I'm going to ask each one of them if they would. Well, first of all, let me start with Daryl Carter. He's the head of Havana. He has 7,000 housing units that are affordable and quality of life, good places to live, and they're affordable. So that's the right combination. I also should tell you about Daryl. I've never met anyone like that. He has 2 master's degrees from MIT. So that's the claim to fame. That's something. Brian Jordan, head of First Tennessee. One of the most successful bankers in America, and as he made his commitment to Operation Hope, I remember that he and John Hope Bryant and I talked about it, and he said, you know, these are tough times for bankers these days. We're just coming out of the biggest banking recession in the history of the country, and then he kind of smiled and he said, so I think this is a good day to make a commitment to financial inclusion to serve our communities and our customers and all over our footprint. And then John Bartling, the largest landlord in the country, as I recall, in terms of 55,000 single-family homes that provide choice and quality and a decent place to live all over the country. Again, from the worst of times to the best of times, coming out of the recession and using that recession, which is all these single-family homes around the country, and building them into something that's good for the communities and for their tenants. So I'm going to start with each of you. John, we'll just start with you. What if you describe, as a CEO, describe to us your business model in terms of what makes your company, Invitation Homes, successful, and with an eye towards financial inclusion. So what do you do that helps your stakeholders, your tenants, your vendors, your constituencies, and your communities a better place to live and to work? John?
Thank you, Steve. And John, it's great to be here again. Thank you for including us. We're proud of what you're building here. One of our core values at Invitation Homes is unshakable integrity. So I have to say we're only 50,000 homes. We're in 14 markets, and we're in the process of really trying to do something that's never been done before, which is create a single-family rental industry and a single-family rental business, for which at the core of it is quality of choice. Families should have an opportunity to move into the neighborhood, go to the school, be close to the employments in the neighborhoods that they choose sooner rather than later. Home buying, unfortunately, takes time. You have to get a down payment. You have to go through the process of really getting your credit in order. Single-family rental provides a real quality of choice. And we look at our business as really being the first step of really filling a hole in the donut in today's market, which is if you're not buying your home and you have a family, you're a starter family, you may be older, you want to live in a house near your children, how do you get into that neighborhood? How do you get that house that starts your life? And at Invitation Homes today, providing those options, providing quality of choice, providing the neighborhood of choice that Americans can live in. and that is a financial inclusion. It is an opportunity for workforce housing to have better quality of choice, and it's an opportunity for us to provide a service to the community and be a part of the community in a way that's enhancing, enriching the lives of those that we house.
Daryl, first.
Daryl Carter. I first want to just an acknowledgement to my two of my fellow panelists, and one being John Bartling, who's one of my very, very good friends, who I've known John for many years, and the one thing I can say about John does it right in the context of what we're all about here today. The second thing, which, you know, I just met Brian, and Brian, you know, is the CEO of an incredible institution that in 1994, my old company, Capri Capital, we bought a subsidiary of First Tennessee Bank that at the time was about $500 million in assets that we later built to about $8 billion in assets, and that institution gave me that start, and I'm very appreciative of it. To talk a little bit about my business now, Avana Capital Management, we own apartments primarily targeted at residents that make from $25,000 a year to $50,000 a year. So low, moderate income apartment residents, that's who we target. We own communities in California, Florida, and 6 or 7 other states. And you know, we look at inclusion as the community. And you know, in terms of we engage our residents, we engage public officials, we engage, you know, the vendor community. About 35% of our vendors are minority owned. And we also define inclusion as we interact with the gangs that are in neighborhoods, because they're part of the community as well. So that's what we do. Our business model is to acquire and renovate apartments and try to make them very, very good quality.
So emphasis on quality and affordability at
Yes.
the same time, which in years past have sometimes gotten separated, so
Yes.
you keep them together. So Brian, tell us about the banking business, and specifically First Tennessee and First Horizon.
Well, I'll start by thanking you, Steve, for making the introduction to John and Operation Hope. I'd have to say you didn't appropriately describe John as a force of nature. But I am, and our organization is grateful that you've introduced us, and we look forward to not only the Operation Hope branches, Hope Inside branches that we have today, but building that out over the future. First Tennessee is the oldest bank headquartered in the state of Tennessee. We were founded in 1864. For the history majors, Abraham Lincoln was still president, and it was Civil War was still going on during that period. We are the largest bank in terms of deposit share in the state of Tennessee, and our business is focused on serving Main Street, serving the entire community, and helping towns like Memphis, Chattanooga, Knoxville grow and grow with an economic vibrancy that lifts the entire economic fabric of the community. Our headquarters today are about 3 blocks from where we were founded in 1864. So we're committed to our communities. The banking system, you may have heard we got a little bit of bad press in terms of financial services in the last 8 years, but the banking industry at the end of the day in a lot of ways is a circulatory system of communities, and it takes the risk to match up depositors and borrowers and fund growth to help entrepreneurs get on their feet, to grow their businesses, essentially the circulatory system in the economic community and the communities that we serve. So our day in, day out objective is to meet the needs of our customers and to help our communities grow. And if that happens, our business will continue to grow and thrive. So being founded in 1864 to today, we're roughly a $26 billion asset organization.
And Brian, tell us about, I know that you have a total commitment to Operation Hope, so tell us how that is how you're doing that. Tell us about your passion, what brings you to this conference vis-a-vis Operation Hope, and what are you doing with Operation Hope?
Yeah, to date, we've opened 3 Hope Inside Centers. All of them were opened in 2015. The first 2 centers were in Memphis. One is in our first branch bank that was open in what I would describe as Midtown Memphis. And we are seeing fantastic progress in the first 9 to 12 months. We're seeing seminars sold out. We're seeing people come back following the seminars, getting the advice and counseling they need to improve their credit scores, to improve their financial well-being. We're also seeing it have a significant impact on our people. There's a huge amount of excitement in our organization. We have people who are passionate about this work, and based what I said earlier, we see ourselves as part of the economic fabric of the community, and we believe strongly that we have to lift the entire economic fabric of the community. One last point, Steve, that I'll make. It moved one of our employees so significantly, the work that we were doing with Operation Hope. He resigned from our organization, came to Operation Hope and took a job, and he's now opened and operating our Hope Inside Center in Nashville, Tennessee. So
Wow.
it's a fantastic, it's had a fantastic impact on just reinforcing in our organization how important the entire fabric of the community is and how we touch it completely.
So it changes the lives not only of your customers, but also of your employees.
Yeah, absolutely. It's clearly we see progress in people's credit scores. They're improving their credit scores, but it has in a lot of ways unleashed the passion that the folks in our organization have for the communities that we serve.
Yeah. So to go from 0 to 3 in the space of 1 year is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And I know you're not done yet. Little birdie tells me that you'll be at 15 within a short period of time.
We're working our way to 15.
Awesome. 0 to 15 in the space of a few years. Thank you. John Bartling, I know that you're involved with Operation Hope with the entrepreneurship program, so tell us about that.
Yeah, part of being in the single-family rental business is, of course, you're committed to your communities. And in our business, it's a very bespoke business. It's a very granular business. It's a very diverse business. Here in Atlanta, we have over 7,000 homes. And in that regard, we have a big staff here, over 100 people. And we're trying to find things that connect us to the community. How do we connect with our residents? How do we connect with the community in a way, our vendors, our suppliers? But more importantly, how do we build a bench for tomorrow? And in that regard, we've been working with John and his team to really work in the entrepreneurial program, teach vendors who may someday be able to work for us or with us. If not for us, at least we can help them feed their families, help them grow into new businesses. And in fact, one of the things we'll talk to John about after this convention is a new program that we want to launch on apprenticeship, where we want to start to take young people out of Operation Hope, put them with our maintenance techs for a year, have them beside our call center people, but give these young folks who would otherwise be in a vocation, looking to get into a vocation, train them, teach them, and hopefully build into what we are so proud of doing, which is make a house a home and build a family.
Wow. I just heard John Hope Bryant say yes. In fact, he said heck yes, I think, or something like that. So Daryl, tell us about your passion. What brings you here in this conference on financial inclusion, and how do you pursue that?
Well, number one, John is just an incredible, and we all know John, but ultimately, John and I are looking at how we can take our business model and do some things in conjunction with his wonderful organization. We share many of the same philosophies. For instance, with in promoting diversity amongst our contractors, I mean, one of the things that unfortunately many programs out there that are geared to minority suppliers or vendors or contractors, I always like to say that they give you enough business to fail, but not enough business to succeed. So one of the things we try to do is, we just recently took on a minority painting contractor with a very, very large job, perhaps a little bit of a stretch for where this company was, but we're doing 3 other rehabs in the same market. So we said, look, if you can get this one done, here's your pipeline of 2 others that you can do, which gives them the ability to make an investment for a pipeline of business. And I think it's important. And certainly many of these things that as John and I have sat down in terms of some of our philosophies, they align very closely with many of the principles here. So we are looking to expand our relationship with John and all the wonderful things that he does. That was asset size, by the way. For those that didn't hear. Because it almost sounded like something else. But our apartment portfolio is about $1 billion in assets today.
Wow. A billion. Kind of has a nice
John,
symmetry to it.
I have to interrupt and say it's better than that, because Daryl Carter is not only a dear friend of mine, as you know, he is also the chairman of the National Multi-Housing Council, which is the largest trade association for apartments in the world. He is the man who can make a difference, and he is every day.
Awesome, thank you.
Let me bring it back to your customers and the people that you touch through financial inclusion. So can you cite, and I'll ask this all of it, some people whose lives you've changed? Have you seen this change the lives of the people you've touched, whether it's through Operation Hope or through your day-to-day business? So I'll ask any of you that want to start.
I'll start, Steve. The impact we're seeing on the customers we serve is fantastic, but I'll make it even more basic than that. I mentioned 2 Operation Hope Inside centers in Memphis. Our partners or friends at SunTrust opened the first Operation Hope Inside facility in Memphis, and John had me, and then he really drove home the deal when he said, look, he said, you need to know that these problems and the people that are being served are all around you. They're everywhere. And he said, you have people that work for you that are getting help at Operation Hope, Hope Inside, in a SunTrust branch. And it took the problem, it made it much more clear for me and our organization that this is not just folks that don't have homes and don't have jobs. It's folks that have created financial difficulty, not through the fault of their own, but something's happened on a mortgage or whatever. Credit scores can affect anybody and everybody. And then the final point that I would make is John and I were speaking to a group of people, and afterwards, one of the technicians in the room came up to me and said, I heard what you both said. Is this for real? Everybody who's trying to do this work is looking to take money from you and not really deliver results. And I said, this is for real. We will help you. If you will give me your contact information, we'll get you in the program. And he was in our financial center for the next Saturday seminar. So it's making a big difference.
So you've seen people go from 500 credit score to 700 credit score, and it changes their lives.
Oh, yes. The difference between being in the low 500s and being in the 600 to 700 range is huge in terms of getting people permanent financing for a home, improving their credit cards, all areas of their finance, whether it's getting out of the cycle of payday lending or getting an auto loan or whatever. The FICO score Whether it changes or not in the future, today it is the fundamental yardstick that we evaluate consumers largely on today, and it's important to all of us, and for the folks that need repair, these services are doing a great job making progress.
Daryl, how have you seen lives change?
Well, you know, when we started this company in 2008, part of my vision was to take a different approach to affordable rental housing. I think, you know, even Section 8 housing that we own. And when I went to investors, I said, look, part of it is we have to invest in brick and mortar to make it nicer, but we also have to invest in the community. Every investor said, well, does that mean that I'm going to get less of a return? I said, no, if we do it the right way, you're going to make more money. And specifically, you know, and John was kind enough to come to a property that we had an opening of a very large basketball court. Something that's kind of taboo in the apartment business because people say, well, you don't want to put a basketball court, you're going to attract gangs and young people. Well, the fact is, we have a 528 unit property, we have 1,000 kids there, so you do need to provide some recreation. And one of the things that we believe that, you know, one of the biggest challenges in many areas are kids doing homework, and many parents work, and their kids get off at school at 3, and the parents don't get home till 7:30 or 8. And so that 5 hours is crucial. So we have at many of our communities after-school programs where the child can come. We work with nonprofits that will work with them on their homework. We provide a snack and a safe environment for them to do their homework. And the money we spend there, thank you, it translates to higher occupancy points, low turnover, and particularly lower maintenance costs. We get probably 250 to 350 kids every night at that one property. And there are 3 kids that are in one place doing something productive. So that's, you know, again, and our investors, we tell them that's why we make you a lot of money. That's not in spite of, or that doesn't cause you to make less, it causes you to make more.
So it's the classic doing well by doing good.
That's right.
So as you do something good for your communities, it actually translates into a more successful business model for you. John, how about you? What have you seen lives change?
You know, I think what's been fun is Invitation Homes is about 3.5 years, and I've been there about 1.5 years now. And the fun part for me and how I've seen lives change is when you're building a company from scratch or you're creating something, you really have an opportunity to ask yourself, what's the mission? And performance without mission is a house without people. So what's our mission? How do we differentiate ourselves? How do we who's our customer? Who's our suppliers? What are we doing in the community? We're the largest neighbor in the U.S. How do we make a difference to our neighbors? How do our neighbors embrace us when we move into their neighborhood or buy a home in their neighborhood? And so the challenge is to really differentiate yourself in many different ways. When you look at our communities, when you look at our employee base, when you look at our resident base, just as an employer alone, and I always laugh about John because I always remember at my last employer, he was telling me we look a little too vanilla. I'm happy to say in our employer, we're 44% of color.
Wow.
Who's our vendors? Who are the people that are cleaning our houses, who are doing the landscaping, who are replacing the roofs, who are changing our HVACs? We have an enormous opportunity to really invest in our communities and build coalitions with our community that really brings durable employment, durable housing, and real quality of choice. And so where I've seen the change is really creating and being a part of an industry that's really building at a very community level what is effectively an opportunity to choose to be in a house in a neighborhood that would otherwise not be available to people to rent.
And that doesn't just happen accidentally. It has to come from leadership and vision and the CEO and others in the leadership in your company deciding to make that happen. So my congratulations.
Well, thank you. And one last thing I would just say on it, because I would be regret, if not only a commitment to do good in the communities, but it's also a commitment to be committed to minority hiring, but it's also a commitment to, and we see it complementary to our business, it's really hiring veterans that are coming back. And we are committed to bringing in 15% of our employee base as being former veterans and giving them a lift up as well.
So it's the debt that we all owe.
Yes.
So let me take it from kind of the big picture of changing communities and lives in general. Let me take it down to just individuals. So if you had a young person sitting here, and I know that you've mentored and been involved in the lives of young people. Let's say, just hypothetically, somebody's 18 years old. So if you could give them one bit of advice for how to build a successful and a satisfying and a productive life, what would you suggest? Daryl?
Oh my God. You know,
Or you can give two if you want to.
given that I have a 13-year-old and 11, and you know, and who know more than me, I always am learning how I should what they could teach me. But you know, I think today what's really important is work ethic and you know education and being willing to go beyond the bounds of your comfort zone. And one of the things that a lot of our kids that in urban areas just need to get a broader sense of what's out there. You know, I grew up on the west side of Detroit. And my dad who was an auto worker, made a big thing about getting us to see other places. And it was an amazing thing. I saw my dad, he was a hardcore, tough SOB, rest in peace. But the only time I ever saw him get touched was when I showed him when I got out of business school, where I was taking my first job, which was at Continental Illinois Bank in Chicago. And there's this very iconic view where the Board of Trade and the Federal Reserve. And I said, this is where I'm going to be working. And he just almost teared up. And I'm like, God, what's this? I'd never seen that in 30 years. And then a week later, he sent me a picture that I was about 7 years old, and he had taken a photograph at the same place. So you can't think that that's just coincidental. And people sometimes, if kids have a touch that it's out there, they will pursue it. And so you gotta, you know, just to me, expand our children's minds.
So Brian, what would you say to that young person?
Well, I'm a copy Daryl because I think it's critical, and maybe one of the most pressing issues that we face as a country is making sure that we educate our young people. So get a good education, and that we all work to make sure that our kids have an opportunity to get that education and to put it to use in the productive economy. And then I'll copy the second piece of it. I think I've got a 16-year-old, and they don't take advice very well, particularly about managing money. But I do think that it's important that we put a lot of effort into financial literacy with young people in those formative years, because our systems and our mechanisms, because of technology mainly, we have a whole lot less tolerance for mistakes in the financial system. And a small mistake managing your money or a crime, they all set you back. They set you back a lot more than you can ever imagine when you're 18 years old. And learn those skills, get it right. And if you do that, it'll give you so much more advantage when you decide to start this business or that business or take this job or that job.
John, how would you phrase it?
Everything they said. You know, the only thing and by the way, I have a 26-year-old and a 19-year-old, and they don't take advice either, so it doesn't change, guys. I got bad news for you. I have more luck telling someone who works with me than someone who's related to me. I think the number one thing, and literacy, education, all of these are important elements to success. But what I have found personally, and I think it's true of everyone on this stage, is having a passion for something that makes you wake up every morning. Whatever that passion is, follow it, commit to it, and put the time into it, and it can change your life and it can change your world. There's nothing worse than to feel like you don't have a passion about why you wake up every day. And so, number one thing I always say is find something that you can engage in and challenge you all of your life.
So the passion. Let me move from the individual and the adolescent and the teenagers up to the banking business, and I'll start with Brian, the banker. So tell us about the state of banking as a lender today. So people say, and they say it to you all the time, they say it to me all the time, gosh, I can't get a bank loan. So where are we on bank loans, and will that evolve over the next 10 years? And then I'm going to ask the two borrowers on the panel where they think we are on bank lending. So Brian, you get to go first.
Yeah, it has gotten harder to get a loan. There is no doubt about that. And whether it was the right correction, time will tell. But following 2007, 2008, there's a whole lot more structure put around what it takes to get a loan, and financial institutions do a whole lot more documentation, putting a box around it. And that goes back to my earlier point about not making mistakes. The easier you get in that box, the easier it is to get a loan. That said, there is a tremendous amount of passion and energy in the financial services industry, and I work with a lot of financial institutions through industry groups across the country to help consumers and customers in the small business space, startup, and otherwise get the money they need to build out their dreams. We're all looking for all the loan opportunities we can get. So I guess I would say in summary, there's plenty of money out there. It's a little more difficult. You have to deliver more paper, but it can be achieved, and we need to work to make it simpler, but the money is there, and don't let people give up. Let's figure out how to get people the money they need.
Good. Daryl or John, y'all want to add to that
for
as a borrower?
For us, very quickly, we have people competing to do business with us because we're a low leverage borrower, meaning, loan to value wise. And Fannie and Freddie are very active in our space. So we find that between the banks and Fannie and Freddie, we have great availability of capital.
John?
Well, I'll answer the question by saying I'm on a mission, which is single-family rental is not right now a product that is approved at Fannie and Freddie. And when you look at someone going into an underinvested market and they want to go build a house, they may want to just renovate a house, and they need a loan to go do that. Right now, that's based on your credit. That's based on a box that is going to be very difficult for you to ever get approval for, and more than likely, it's not going to drive new investment into those markets. By getting Fannie and Freddie to approve single-family rental as a product, that means the banks can look at that as an exit for their loan, a permanent financing, a choice that allows then, if the market is not for sale, it needs to be for rent, it gives the choice to the bank to bring liquidity into those markets. So I'm on a mission to get Fannie and Freddie. I'd ask everyone in this room who has those relationships to help us. It's a product, it's a hole in the donut that needs to be filled. They currently finance single family for sale, they finance apartments. There's no reason why they're not financing single family rental.
Memo to Congress. So ladies and gentlemen, the CEOs with passion, with commitment, and with a business model that is based on financial inclusion. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.